Hey friends, Happy New Year! Welcome to 2025, and we are so honored and glad that you continue to or have tuned in to the Performance Matters podcast series. And we can't think of a better way to kick off our year than with the remarkable Dr. Conrad Gottfredson, who's going to share with us some ideas and the outline to the workshop he'll be teaching at our 2025 5 Moments We Need Summit this May in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this episode, Con will go deeper into the methodology, what it's about, and the outline and the remarkable topics he'll be covering in this very, very powerful workshop. Give a listen, friends. Welcome, Con. We hope it's helpful. Friends, welcome back to another Performance Matters podcast series. I am honored to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Dr. Conrad Gottfredson, who is the pioneer and thought leader around what is the 5 Moments in Need and has encompassed workflow learning. Con, welcome back.
Well, it's always good to be in a podcast with you, Bob.
Yeah, it is. And my gosh, Con, it really has been remarkable how these have grown. We have well over 10,000 subscribers. And
yeah,
my gosh, I think we're into our 50th episode or something crazy. But so hopefully it's helpful. Let us know. Appreciate the feedback. And let's dive deep into this. Con, a little self-promotion here. We cannot wait until our summit this coming May. We really hope many of you listening will consider joining. We'll give you a link to that relative to the podcast. But boy, we're going to have a remarkable time over 2 days here in Charlotte in May. And one of the incredible parts of that, and this year we are focusing on the Enable methodology of 5 Moments and of workflow learning. So those of you out there that are really wanting to be steeped in design, truly make a run at this event's going to just be incredible. 150 people, intimate, but just really energetic, fun event. A new addition this year is what we're calling the Thought Leader Workshops. Last year, we had just these remarkable thought leaders join us, give a little, kind of podcasty kind of thing for half an hour or so. Our participants were so overjoyed with them and got so much out of them that this year we've expanded those to what we were calling the Thought Leader Workshops. And of course, Con, you're one of our 4. We'll talk about the others toward the end here. But if we're going to talk about Enable, how can we not have you and Sue Reber there to teach this 90-minute thing? The title, Advanced Instructional Design for 5 Moments in Need Solution. Can I have you do us a favor here, Con? Because those listening may not have a lot of context because they're folks who just found our podcast. So although we're going to go deeper in just a moment, could you give us some grounding in what Enable is? What's it mean? Why is it important to this? And then we'll dissect it.
Sure. So in 1984, going way back when, I left graduate school with a PhD that had focused on instructional design and evaluation and research. And so I'd been trained by the best in my graduate work, and I had a great love for instructional design. I knew that methodology made a difference, and I entered the real world of work to find out that institutional learning, like the university where I received my PhD, is not the same as organizational learning. That organizations that have businesses, organizations that have a mission and purpose, it's a different world. And it became clear to me that instructional design, traditional instructional design, was directed towards institutional learning, but not organizational learning. And I asked a very important question at that time. And that question was, so learning is a means to what end in an organization? And the answer to that was to enable people to perform effectively on the job. And then my next question was, so how does all that I've learned in instructional design lead to that? And that required me to pivot my view of research in learning theory, instructional theory, the approaches to instructional design, to focus on performance, not knowledge gain, not even learning, but to performance, to enabling effective performance. And the end result of that has been, from that time until now, the adjustment, adaptation, pivoting, consolidation of practices, all geared and focused upon the full range of learning and developing job skills, from the training to the transfer to sustaining performance in
Mm,
the flow of work. And that's where the 5 moments of learning need came into play. And it was clear to me that traditional learning was focused on learn new, not even
mm,
learn more, really,
mm, mhm,
learn new methodology. And there was a learn more, but more than that, there's the moment of apply, solve, and change. And all of that supporting people not only in that formal learning, but in the workflow as people do their jobs. And that required the development and adjustment and, like I said, pivoting of instructional design methodology to be able to do what this and meet this broader requirement without sacrificing and having to add more effort, more time on what it is that we do in the development of those solutions. I knew that as I began, that I had to be able to develop a 5 moments of need solution with the same footprint of effort that most people eventually typically spend in just developing a training solution, which is the start, but only the
mm.
start of the journey. So, a long story, longer, Enable is what that methodology has become, and it has evolved and grown and become more focused over time with experience in hundreds and hundreds of organizations across many projects in those organizations. And so Enable is that instructional design methodology. It is the most powerful, effective instructional design methodology on earth today when it comes to performance-based organizational learning.
Absolutely. And I am a practitioner, so I can testify to that statement. And we've seen, again, hundreds, if not thousands now, of instructional designers and organizations
Oh, yeah.
just experience the transformational power of this. So you're going to give this remarkable 90-minute workshop
Yep.
with our dear colleague, Sue Reaver, who's just a masterful, if not one of the best,
Yeah.
5 moments consultants on the planet. So folks who come to this are going to be fortunate to attend and experience this workshop under your guidance, your two's guidance. Let's cover some key points. Let's wet some whistles here and talk about what's meaningful here. As you said, Con, the Enable methodology is all encompassing, very involved, very proven, vetted. It leads to some key things that you're going to go into a much
Yeah.
deeper dive into. And so let's pick a couple of these apart.
Yeah. Can I just say the reason why we wanted to do this is that we've not had the luxury to go into advanced instructional practices
Right.
associated with Enable. Our focus has been getting organizations up and going in the core methodology so that they can do it and make a difference. But we've learned so much over these years, and there are these advanced principles and practices of instructional design that we wanted to be able to share with folks, and talk about them, but we just haven't had the forum. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to move beyond the core, the heart of instructional design as it relates to, the 5 moments of need, and go to some of these advanced practices and methodologies, if you will.
Perfect. So let's cherry pick a couple here.
Okay.
The we've talked a lot about agile design in our industry for years, and Enable is really one of the more rigorous ones I've been exposed to, and also mainly because I love the performance
Yeah.
focus of it. So iterative planning and the power of an MVP.
Yeah.
What talk us through the importance of that, and if in some ways the uniqueness of that in the success of this method.
Well, today instructional design has to be agile. And
Mhm.
and so most agile instructional design practices focus on agile project planning methodologies, and many folks believe that if I'm applying agile project management practices, I'm doing agile instructional design. Well, that's not true. That is certainly helpful, agile project management, but Agile instructional design is much more than that. And it has to do with how we go about things. And one of the greatest challenges that we find organizations have is they're brought in too late, in the process, and
Mm.
so they're required to build a solution when they don't have all of the time that they need to build that solution. Start to finish, it's going to take me this much time, but I have less than that time to actually deliver a solution that will make a difference. And so we've developed an iterative process, a very powerful way to iterate over time, uh, and get to the full functioning, powerful solution, but to determine what a minimum viable product that can deliver value on day one, that can get you up and going within the time frame that you have. But you've got to go through this process of how much time do we have? How much time is it really going to take? What is a minimum viable product? And then how do we move about and develop this in such a way that we can deliver in the time being required, the time needed? And that's iteration planning and the defining of a minimum viable product, which isn't a negative thing. It is viable. A minimum viable product that isn't viable isn't a minimum viable product, you know? And so it's got to be viable. It's got to be able to deliver, the impact that you need on
Yep.
day one, but then be strengthened over time as you iterate on that complete solution. It's not building a partial solution, creating a full solution, and then strengthening it over time to its full capacity to deliver impact.
And I find, Con, that we struggle with this in our industry because our chunk size is just way too big.
Yeah.
Our minimal viable product is a course or an e-learning. We don't, we're so wired to look at our deliverables in just a bizarre way that makes an MVP or iteration, I think, almost impossible. Right. And so this methodology lets us attack that differently. So there are two products. There's two deliverables that come out of this. One we've hammered to death, frankly. We've had podcasts on it and such. And those who've heard us talk, they get this Ignatium, which is a digital coach, which, by the way, I'm not minimizing by any means. But, we've really spun on that a lot. I think one of the more not served, but an area that's really a remarkable part of this solution is what we call targeted training.
Yeah.
And our industry has spun on blended learning for years. And since I stumbled on this and we've been doing this work, Con, I would argue that we never did blended learning by what the 5 moments would consider. So when we say targeted training, what do we mean by that? And how does it attack something earlier you said, which was, maybe we weren't offering uh, the entire training package or
Yeah.
training offerings that we should have in the first place?
Well, I don't know about our listeners. My experience is that most organizations don't have all the time they need to train everybody fully on everything that they need to train.
Hmm.
There's so much content, and that we've fallen into a cover it all approach in the formal learning side of things that then ransacks the instructional integrity of the learning experience. What I mean by that is that we set aside the fundamental practices of instruction that make a difference because we don't have time to do it. For example, integrating skills, that is having integration practice activities that allow the skills to be integrated, providing the level and the amount of practice that you need to provide for those skills where the critical impact of failure is significant to catastrophic. There's not enough time to provide the feedback, to observe performance, provide feedback. These things are being lost, in
Hmm.
the mechanism, because we've just got to cover it all. And so we have these slide decks, these huge slide decks, and we're moving from slide to slide, covering content without skills really being developed. And what suffers are the skills where the critical impact of failure is significant to catastrophic, which is where we should be targeting our instructional design, our focus on these. And so in our Enable methodology, we're very clear about how to design and build a targeted training approach where you focus on the critical impact of failure and you push other skills to be learned while working in the flow of work. And that's targeted training. But in that journey, in that targeted training journey, there is not in our industry an understanding of the difference between learning something new and learning more. And the methodologies are very different. Learning more is when you have contextual understanding and there is an approach and a methodology that is much faster, that requires less resource investment, that allows us to work in the workflow sooner and get people up and going sooner. And that's not understood. I would say that probably 70% of learning that is going on, at least 70% of learning, if not 80, of learning that's going on in organizations is a learn more circumstance, but those organizations are applying learn new methodologies, the old traditional methodologies, and not taking advantage of the contextual understanding that people bring with them to that training. And so we're going to deal with that challenge. And, frankly, it will cost justify the entire investment in the summit. This alone.
Well, and it's funny, Con, because in my early life, I've shared this in past podcasts, I was a senior director in the learning group at Microsoft. And IT is the classic world of more. Because most everyone listening on here has used a word processor for probably most of their life.
Yep.
We're past the digital immigrants into the digital age.
Yeah.
And so you've been using word processors, spreadsheets, maybe other things since you entered grade school. But when we came out with a new feature or a new ribbon, we would put those poor folks back through new training.
Yeah.
We didn't understand that they came understanding bolding and formatting and what a ruler was. But we rolled those more concepts, which are new in and of themselves, but we rolled them into a model assuming no context.
Yep.
And to your point, so much training in the world, when we go to develop any, we plop it into our templates. We don't take this such powerful concept of the difference in those two moments of need. So you mentioned critical skills.
Yeah.
So skills, let's just start there, are insane as a genre right now in L&D. Everyone's reskilling, upskilling, skills gaps, you name it. It's the dolly of the day. So, but let's get back to it. Rapid skill strategy, particularly in the world of change.
Yeah.
How do we attack that relative to this discipline?
So the Enable methodology allows us to implement solutions that allow people to close their own skill gaps. And so anytime that change happens, I have a skill gap, or if I forget, I have a skill gap. So closing the best gap learning is individualized, where people can close their own skill gap real time at the moment of need when they need to perform that skill. And so we, of course, have in the Enable methodology, right at the heart of that is a critical impact of failure assessment, where you look at the critical impact of failure at a skill level, a job task, and the knowledge associated with that job task at the tactical skill level. We do that, and that's out of the box. But what we've learned is that all change is not created equal. That one change may impact an organization much more significantly than another change. And so a change strategy that treats every change equally is inefficient and not effective. And so we're going to be dealing with how do you look at a change that's coming at you? How do you determine the level of response that you need to make? And how do you put together a change strategy that's going to help you be as efficient, effective, and as fast as you need
Hmm.
to be to move towards successful change performance in the flow of work? It's not enough, Bob, as you know, to just say, to let people know and inform them of change. We have the responsibility of making sure that if that change affects performance, if that change affects understanding, that change is implemented, that people
Hmm.
can perform differently now, and that they can understand differently so that they can make decisions based upon that change. And that's what we're going to address in this workshop.
And what's interesting, Con, is that a lot of adults. There's a thing, are obviously around metacognition, right? We've talked about these things and self-efficacy. And even though they are in a more mode, this is what we're talking about here, right? It's not a new mode per se; it's a more mode. Their cognitive strategies to make the jump into the change is often weak, frankly. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean they don't. It doesn't mean they don't get there. But you talk a lot about, lost work time and work stoppage. A lot of it's because of people trying to navigate change and keeping current and figuring out the difference and so on. And we can be much more intentional about that with these kinds of strategies.
Yep.
Now, before skills were hot, competencies were hot. Arguably, we've had conversations and even a podcast about what is the difference between those two in some ways, but competencies have stood the test of time. They're there, right? Particularly when it comes to soft skills and so on. We love these behavioral or value-based competencies, but the reality is they're job skill competencies. Like you've always said, it's like a supporting knowledge. Without a performance, it's nice to know, but frankly, it's noise
Yeah.
if it doesn't enable a job skill. So take us through job skill competencies and how we finally make sense of this darn thing.
Well, there's not a skill is not one thing in the vernacular of our world. And that's the problem and the challenge is when we talk
Hmm.
skill, you've got some people who are thinking about behaviors,
Hmm.
global behaviors that cut across everything that we do. And that is a very different kind of a skill. And then a skill that is tactical in nature. And so we're going to provide folks and have a discussion around that whole range of what a tactical job skill is versus a behavioral skill. And how do you navigate the journey? If you focus in first on those higher level behavioral skills and those values, and you ignore the tactical job skills that people need to do, what's going to happen is you're going to fail.
Hmm.
You're going to fail from the perspective of having people truly perform in the way that they need to perform. And so there is a model that we're going to share with folks on how to proceed in skill development across the journey of competency development, of developing and moving from novice to skilled in the world of performance and job performance. So that will be a very exciting discussion that we have around that.
Brilliant. Well, friend, the entire workshop is going to be brilliant. And if I may, again, give a little more meat to the bone here around this, we did do a podcast before this, which you hopefully listened to with Dr. Jack Phillips, who's going to be doing a workshop on measurement that
Yeah.
is remarkable in our industry and enabled in incredible ways. Sorry for the enable word there, but in powerful ways with workflow learning, 5 moments. We have Josh Cavalier coming in, who's going to relate AI to, I think, in some ways, if I may, finally a meaningful application around performance in 5 moments. And then we are thrilled to have Andy Huber from
Yeah.
Meta, who's going to do just a remarkable thing around the power that we get through
Yeah.
a discipline that's kind of been around a long time, but most struggle to implement, and that's content management and how
Yeah.
this whole discipline enables that.
Jack is going to be focusing on forecasting ROI. So this is how your upfront forecasting. It is a crucial need in our industry, and very few know outside of Jack and Patty, teaching them how to do this. This is really, really important. And what's exciting about Josh's workshop is you're going to roll up your sleeves and learn how to develop smart agents, in the journey of that. And that's great. And Angie and the folks in her team are doing it in terms
Mm-hmm.
of learning content management, single source publishing, something that we tried to do a long time ago, years ago, and failed at. Well, she's going to share this how you make a difference now today in that and move to warp speed in all of that. So it's exciting, really exciting.
Yep. And Angie will put a ribbon around our podcast in this series after the first of the year. So give a listen to her. Josh and Jack have spoken a bit to theirs in prior ones. So again, give a listen. My gosh, you guys, I would come to this just for those workshops and to hang with you guys for 2 days.
Yeah.
This is again
Oh,
a very
fun.
different experience, right? It isn't 100 breakouts and you run between rooms. We're going to be in one large, remarkable room, these remarkable thought leaders, and have their ear, advice, expertise, lessons learned for just the entire session. So, Con, thanks for who you are. Thanks for your leadership, your thought leadership in this thing, and all you brought to us with the 5 moments in Enable. It has transformed our industry. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, friends. Talk soon.
Well, that's it for this episode of the 5 Moments of Need Performance Matters series. We look forward to future conversations around how to best put the 5 moments of need into practice. We welcome your feedback and can be reached on Twitter using my Twitter handle at BMOSH, as well as our 5 Moments of Need website, which is www.5momentsofneed.com. We hope you're finding these helpful and will subscribe to future episodes. Have a great day, friends.